Today I'm going to show you how to make this bum bag, which is made with recycling Japanese antique obi. You'll find it in kits in different fabrics in my store. And if you have already some materials you want to use to make your bag, you can download the pattern and the instruction book as a data version. So you have all the instruction in the kit, but I wanted to make this video because I think it's good to have a visual support where I show you exactly how. It's probably easier. Let's open this kit and see what's inside. The main fabric of the bag, which is usually a piece of Japanese obi. This one is the Golden Waves. It's a mixture of silk, which is kind of mustard yellow, and golden thread. Another fabric is going to be used for the lining, thinner than the first one, but also very shiny. The zipper, straps and buckles, a piece of 3D mesh to make the back of the bag, paper patterns, and the instruction booklet. So the first thing you can see is check that you have all the material required. Grabbing a pair of paper scissors, and we're going to cut the patterns. This piece, which is the back of the bag, is already provided in the kit. This is the part of black mesh that I showed before. So for now, I'm going to cut all the other pieces. So I have the front and pocket, which is the same piece, the flap, and both sides of the bag. All the indications of how much you need to cut is on the pattern. So when it says obi, this is the outer, the main fabric, and the lining is the lining, the kimono fabric, the inner fabric. So let's start with the outer fabric. Before cutting the pieces, give the fabric a good ironing on the wrong side to get rid of the creases. And the lining as well. So we'll start cutting the pieces of the main fabric. Take your fabric right side up. The most important thing when you cut is that the center of the bag is aligned on the flap and the front. So when you place both pieces, just make sure this line here in the middle is aligned. There is always a little bit more fabric than you need, so you can place the pattern on your favorite part. For example, if you want to use more of these waves or more of this cloud, you can place them this way, or you can also place them this way. So make sure they are completely stuck together and place some pins all around. You'll notice that here I have a few millimeters missing, and here as well. If it's less than 1 centimeter, it's totally okay, because I can fix this later when I sew the bag. Align them. This is where the zipper is going to arrive. And for the sides, it's not really important where you put the grain line, if it's on this line or this line. It's better maybe if you put it on the line with the notch, but honestly, it's not such a big importance now. So just place them wherever it feels best for you. I want to save this little bit, so I'm just trying to cut the least fabric possible. and you can cut them. So these two pieces are easier to cut at once and cut this line at the end. Before you take out the pins of the pattern, you're gonna snip all the notches that you see on the pattern. So you have them symbolized by these thick black lines, and you're gonna gently cut just a few millimeters of it. Once you do it on all the pieces, you can take off the pins. Now for the lining, you need to cut one of each of these pieces, the flap and the sides. But for the front and the pockets, you need two. So what you can do is fold your fabric and cut them at once. For the lining, I don't really mind if my center line is matching or not, because it's gonna be inside, and also the motif of the pattern is not really something that has to repeat. And let's cut. On the lining as well, make sure you snipped all the notches before you remove the pattern. The first step is to assemble the flap with the zipper. So take the flap right side up and place the zipper right side down, facing the right side of the flap. Hold it with some pins. And sew along the zipper. Change your machine foot as I explained in the instruction book. Always start and finish with a backward stitch. When you arrive close to the sliders, their volume is going to be disturbing, so you can keep the needle down, stuck into the fabric, lift your foot up, and slide them to the back. Put your foot back down and continue sewing. If you need to stop and take the piece out of the sewing machine, just start with a backward stitch again and continue sewing. The zipper is stitched to the outer fabric. Now we're gonna stitch it to the lining piece. Put the zipper back in the position it was when you sew it. And place the lining right side down, aligned with the OB piece. Place a few pins to hold them together. And we're gonna stitch again exactly in the same place on top of the previous stitch, following the zipper teeth. So you're not able to see the zipper teeth anymore because they're hidden by the lining, but you can still easily feel them with your finger and follow them with the machine foot. With this foot, I'm actually not sewing at 1 centimeter from the edge, but 9 or 8 millimeter, which is actually okay as well. Move the slides. We're gonna give it a quick iron from the inside to mark the fold of the fabric here and avoid having the fabric getting caught by the zipper when you use the bag. You can give it a quick iron from the outside as well. Just be careful not to touch the zipper so much as it could melt with the heat of the iron. Now we're going to put the front piece. Remember, you have two pieces of linings. Actually, one of them is going to be the pocket lining. The other one is going to be the front of the bag. So take the first piece. Notice where the notches are. Remember, the 3 notches are at the bottom. So this is the top. And put it right side down on the zipper. Place some pins. We're going to assemble here, following the zipper teeth again. When it's done, we're gonna iron the fabric again to mark this fold here and keep it flat and nice. If you worry about damaging the zipper, you can also place another piece of fabric on top when you're ironing. Okay, now we're gonna prepare the pockets. So we keep this on the side. Now for the pocket, take the front lining and the main fabric's front, both right sides facing together, because we sew on the wrong side. So just make sure this is the top because there's only 1 notch, this is the bottom because I have 3 notches here. And make sure you have the same on the lining. So place them right side against each other. And for now, we are just gonna stitch this line at the top. Make sure that the centers are aligned. And sew at 1 centimeter from the edge. And 1 at the end. When it's done, we're gonna iron it from the inside. Spread the seam allowance open and flatten it down with the iron. And only now you can fold them and iron back on this line. Iron on the wrong side. And the lining is completely invisible from the outside. Now we can attach the pocket to the front. So if you see there is a difference of length at the bottom of the bag, don't worry about it now because this can be fixed later. What's important now is where you want to place your pocket. So if you want to show a tiny bit of the lining, if it's contrasting and you want to show it on the outside of the bag, you can place it 1 or 2 millimeters down. In my case, I want to cover completely the lining, so I want to make sure it doesn't show at all, so I can even cover 1 or 2 millimeters up on the zipper. Place pins so it doesn't move. And also place a few pins at the bottom to avoid having the layers sliding. And we're gonna stitch this center line. So you have a notch here in the center and 1 up here in the center as well. So you're gonna link them both with the ruler and trace the line on the front part. You don't need it on the flap, so just focus on the front part. And I'm gonna add one more pin to hold all 3 layers together. Start sewing from the bottom of the bag. You don't need a backward stitch because we'll come back on top and do one at the end. Just sew slowly and make sure you follow the line. When you arrive close to the zipper, you will feel if the zipper is folded inside, so just straighten it up and make it flat. Okay. Don't stitch too much on the zipper. Keep the needle down, lift your foot up, and do 180-degree turn. And we're gonna come back exactly on the same line. And now we can proceed to a backward stitch. To erase the chalk line, you can use a scrap of silk and rub. Now we're going to assemble the sides of the bag. So take the main fabric sides and notice where you had a notch. The side with the notch is placed towards the zipper. So this is my left side. This is my right side. It doesn't really matter where it is exactly, because depending on the foot you use to sew the zip and where you placed your pockets, you might not have always exactly the same distance. But for me, it's arriving very close to the top of the pocket. Anyway, I want to align it here at the top. This is the most important part. Remember, if anything is not matching at the bottom, we can still fix it later. So I'm going to place it right side on right side. Don't remove this pin. If it's disturbing you, put it the other way, like this. And match the top pieces on the corner. If you had a few millimeters missing on your bag, remember, you will follow the corner of the lining here. Hold it with pins. And now that the pocket is fixed, I can remove this pin. So you can see the piece is not quite flat. That's normal because later on we will close this dart and this will align again. So assemble here at 1 centimeter. It's better to sew watching this side, so you make sure you can check the stitch is passing the zipper. If your zipper is plastic, you can easily sew on top of it, but just make sure you do it slowly. And do the same on the other side. Now I want to assemble the lining sides. Flip everything on the back side, and we're gonna place them the same and stitch exactly on top of the previous seams. Always aligned from the top, pin them down. If it's too thick to pin through all the layers, you can just grab the first layers because everything is already sewn together and is not going to move away. And fold the sides, and you can give it a quick iron as well. So as previously, you can first iron the lining and then the outer fabric as well. Now we're going to fold the flap to give it its final shape. Follow the instructions in the book and fold the fabric towards the outside. Place both notches together and lay the extra fabric towards the center. We'll do the opposite for the lining. Make sure the center fronts are matching. And we're going to quickly stitch to hold everything together. Cut 14 centimeters out of the strap. Burn the edges. This will prevent them from fraying, from unraveling. Then you assemble the strap to the buckle. I'm showing everything quietly because I think it's much better than words. Plus you have all the instructions in the booklet as well. We're gonna stitch here. I stitch 4 times back and forth. Now we can fix it on the bag. So we'll keep the right side facing onto the bag and we'll attach on the sides of the bag. Make sure it doesn't twirl and you can place the other side. Now we're gonna very strongly stitch here and here. Now we're gonna place the back of the bag. So first of all, open the zipper because we're gonna need to turn the bag inside out at some point. And make sure the strap is not in your way. So what you can do is put it inside the pocket for now. And we'll place the bag right side facing the right side of the bag. First, I will align all the notches starting from the top, this center notch, this angle, and this angle. And now the bottom ones. So if you have a lining that's a bit longer, we will always align the back to the shortest layer. Making all 3 notches matching. Make sure you put your pin through all layers. And now you can see the shape doesn't fit. This is round, this is an angle. So we'll force and align the sides and make sure you hold all layers together, the outer fabric and the lining. Sometimes the outer fabric can slip in and hold them with pins. And around here, it will seem a little bit more complicated. So what we'll do, we just force the round fabric to align with the angle as much as possible. Until this little angle here sticks out the least possible. And we'll trim it afterwards. So do the same on the other side. You can even have a little bit more if you need to, if your fabric is thicker. Okay, and now we'll stitch all the way around at 1 centimeter. I want to be able to follow this round angle here. If I put it this way, I'm not going to be able to see it. So place the 3D mesh facing up towards you and start somewhere that it seems easy, like a long straight line or something. You don't necessarily need a backward stitch because we're going to come back in the same place and do it afterwards. And end with the backward stitch. We're going to assemble the bias. I don't want to apply bias here because it's going to be too thick. So I'm going to do one piece of bias here and the other one around the bottom here. So let's start with the top. You place the bias so the crease arrives on top of the stitch. And place the pins. So if it's too thick to go through all layers with your pin, you can just pin the bias to the first layers. You can stop it here and cut it. You can feel the volume of the buckle here. If it's disturbing, you can start a little bit lower. It's very flexible, the bias, so you can follow the curve easily and make it nice and round. And we're going to stitch on top of the crease. Okay, and now we're going to fold the bias back on the other side so it will cover all the seam allowance, the fraying threads, etc. So you can flip the bag on the other side, cut any threads if you need to, and I'm going to fold the bias back in its original shape and then fold it on the seam allowances to make sure everything is covered, including the previous stitch if you can. So do the same all around. You might need a lot of pins here as well. If your pins cannot go through all layers, as long as you grab one layer so it stays in place, it's enough. And I'm going to stitch all the way here. So you want to stitch on all layers, keeping the bias flat. So don't stitch at 1 centimeter. This must be a bit too far. So stitch around 7 millimeter, 8 or 7 millimeter, to make sure you grab all layers with your stitch. So you end up with something like this. And we're going to proceed to the bottom now. So it's exactly the same. If your angles are a little bit too thick, your bias might feel a little bit narrow. You don't have space enough to curl it back. You can trim them a little bit. So you don't need much because your bag is going to be fragile if you cut too much, but sometimes just a few millimeters help because we have so many layers here. Et voilà, you can cut the last little threads here and there, and we're gonna flip the bag inside out. And it's finished! So thank you for watching this video. If you have any question, you can write them in the comments. Visit my store on Etsy, Mikan Bags, and you can find some finished products that I create here in my workshop, some DIY kits of other designs, and data version of the patterns. I hope you enjoyed. Bye!